I'm Gina Bell, and I'm a storyteller. This is Jars of Arioch, Part 2, Chapter 7. There is no going back. Benoit began her tour of New Orleans with Bourbon Street. The pandemic was still on, so it wasn't as alive as I had expected. In fact, New Orleans felt more dead to me than anything. The entire city was riddled with stains. I could feel the pain of tragedy stains with each step I took. Oddly, I found this intriguing. The energy was dark and almost foreboding. I felt as if a part of me belonged there, a most unique form of déjà vu. We walked and took in the local color. It was cold. After grabbing a bite to eat, we headed to Benoit's childhood home. We drove through miles of backwoods roads lined with trees. Spanish moss swayed from the trees in a gentle breeze as dusk took over Louisiana. At this time of the year, the swamp is so quiet. In a month or two, it will all just wake up. This year's the 17-year cicada. Gonna be loud up in here, Benoit remarked with her hand out the window, moving in a swimming sort of way through the air. Her accent sounded much thicker. Ever since we crossed the border into Louisiana, your accent has really thickened, I said to her. Wait till you hear me talking to my family. Tell me more about your mom. My mom? Well, she's somewhat of a celebrity down here. She is loving and kind. She helps everyone in here one way or another. She had hoped I would take over for her one day, learn all the different ways and such, but I chose a different path for myself, meaning you, and going through all of this with you has made me question those decisions. I love my job, Tracy. I love the hunt. You love the hunt, I said to her. Yes, that's a big part of it for me. I love knowing the world is safer because of what I do. I don't understand what is happening to you, but I want to. I want to understand, Tracy. I feel like understanding is something that I must do at this point. Does that make any sense? Yeah, wanting to understand? Yep, me too. I understand that. When we pulled up to Benoit's mother's home, I recognized it from the vision I have when I touch Benoit. I had just parked when her mother came running out of the house. She was much shorter than Benoit, but just as elegant. Lovely for a woman of her age. Nanny immediately flew into one of the nearby trees and watched from above. Is that her? What am I saying? I know who this is. Hi, Tracy. Her voice was sweet and syrupy, just the kind of voice you would imagine a loving Cajun mother to have. Nothing like my mom, that's for sure. She wrapped her arms around me and hugged me. I hugged her back, but intentionally tried to avoid touching her skin. I found there are many things I learned that I wish I hadn't. I respected this woman because I knew the daughter she had raised. I respected her enough not to touch her. What kind of hug was that? You can touch me, baby. I got nothing to hide. I pulled away slowly, but still did not touch her. Her accent was thick. I had to listen very carefully to understand her. It's so nice to meet you finally, I said to her. I couldn't help but feel tremendous envy. What would my childhood have been like if this woman had raised me and kept me safe? You can call me Mom,
if you like, sweet baby. I could use another daughter, mon cher.
Well, that's fantastic, 'cause I could use another mother. She grabbed me again and held me close to her. She held me tightly, and after a second or two, I started to cry. Her maternal touch was a feeling I had always longed for.
You still afraid to touch me?
It's not that. I have a feeling touching you would make me very sick.
But that there's a compliment coming from you, Miss Tracy Thomas. Come in and sit down, child. I got some things I needs to discuss with you.
We sat on her back porch along the water. Hope sat at my feet and slept so hard she snored. Evening was taking over and I could hear frogs croaking. The Spanish moss swayed in a gentle breeze from the trees that it clung to. The older woman was beautiful. She had the same yellow eyes as her daughter, but was much shorter. I could hear Benoit inside talking with her family in another language. I didn't know Benoit spoke. What is that?
Oh, that's Creole, child. We's not Cajun. We's Creole. The Creole language. It's a mixture of languages, French, Spanish, even English. They's all in there. Since all this started with you, I've been feeling the other opening of that other world. The world he takes you to. When that world opens to you, I feels it. I even tasted a bit of those cookies Zydeco made for you. I didn't know they was cookies, though. When my daughter called to tell me about all these things you was going through, I knew my blood must have made those things that tasted like sweet whiskey. That's why I tasted them. It's been exciting about meeting her, too.
She pointed to Hope.
I's heard about these dogs, but I ain't never met one of 'em. How has your dog been lately? She acting herself?
Hope? Yeah, she seems like she's always seemed. There have been some differences, I suppose. Usually she's super aggressive when Aryok is around. There have been a few times recently where she just went quiet. I thought back to Hope in the alley.
Like in the alley?
Okay, I have to ask.
I feels your thoughts, baby. You know how you struggle with your thoughts and your visions. I used to struggle like that too. Then I give in to 'em. That's how it happened for me. I accepted it all. Now I can hear others thinking as if it was my own. I think for me it was easier since I was raised in the old ways. Zydeco was raised that way too. She was raised proper, but she had other plans.
That's her worst action in life. When I touch Zydeco, I see the day she left here.
I ain't gonna lie. The day that she left, that was the worst day of my life. She's my only girl, that one. When your nanny opened that door all those years ago, my own mama felt the door open. She said that she felt something old come into our world, something that would never leave, but rather just come and go from that other place. A hunter, a killer, to clean up the rotten world.
As she was talking, I could see Nanny bouncing on the trees around us. Benoit's mother noticed her too.
You know we's talking about you. Come over, Nanny. Don't be shy now, child.
The crow flew down to us and lighted herself on the porch next to a sleeping Hope.
That dog of yours is dog-tired. Your demon showed up here once. The night Zydeco was born. She was my easiest baby to deliver. She was born right in there, on that same couch. Her brothers now, that was a whole different matter altogether. They fought me hard, those boys. They didn't want to come into this world. Zydeco came in easy, and has always been that way. I thought she'd be right here with me, always. I taught her everything, and then she left. It was the first thing she had ever done that surprised me. It's hard to surprise me. She broke my old heart in a million pieces when she left here, but then she met you when I knew why she left. Sometimes it's hard to see past your own pain. I'm not saying Zydeco knew about you, but I should have known to trust my own daughter. The things she's doing with you, they're important. More important than you know. I had just given birth to Zydeco, and then I sees this man. He's walking around in the yard. A big man with a hat on. He passed out there for the longest time. I finally asked my husband, God rest his soul, who that was. And he looked at me like I was crazy. Ain't no one out there, he kept saying. I thought maybe I was saying things. Then one night, I put her down. Was the first time I had ever let her be in her crib. When my babies was small, I would hold on to them for days after they's born. I had to feel 'em breathing. I put her down so I could get some cleaning done, and when I went back, there he was. That big old coat he wears and that hat. I didn't scream or nothing. I asked him not to hurt her. He didn't say nothing. Just kept staring down. I was about scared to death, but I wouldn't leave without my girl. I asked him who he was, but he didn't say nothing. I crept up as slowly as I could. I had to fight every bone in my body to get closer to him. Then he finally spoke. I was maybe 12 feet. He reached that big old hand of his into her crib and he whispered, "She's beautiful." He said it slow and creepy-like. He touched my girl. When he said it, that voice of his did something to me. It echoed through me like fear. I started screaming for my life. I heard two of my boys comes in to see what was happening. I turned to stop 'em, and when I looked back, the demon was gone. Zydeco told me one of the kin you got up in Gatlinburg had the same thing happen to him. If'n you talk to your mama, maybe you should ask if he ever touched you.
If I called and asked my mother if a creepy dude touched me, she'd ask me, which one?
That's not normal. It's not normal for a mother to do that, Tracy. There's something very wrong with her. When Zydeco was telling me about you, I got visions of you and your brother. God rest his soul. You saved that boy. You know that? He was bound for hell, and you saved him. Like you took that little hand of yours and pulled him right out of there. That's a very powerful thing to do.
Do you know where he is now?
I wish I could tell you, baby. I don't have all the answers. The most important thing is that he ain't there no more. That's what you have to hold on to now. You know how you sees what the bad people done? I sees the good. I sees the best thing they've ever done. That's why I could help all of 'em. No matter how bad they is, I see the good. There've been only a few that I wouldn't help. A few outside that crossed my door, and the moment I touch 'em, I have to ask them to leave. I don't remember why no more. It's been a long time since one of them bad ones has crossed this doorway. I think they know to stay away. I helps everyone I can here. It's why I'm here on this big blue planet. I's here to help. Why you here, Tracy? Do you know yet?
I think I'm here to hunt the bad, to protect the world from them.
That there's a big job. This world got lots of bad in it. You got lots of weight on them tiny little shoulders of yours. Something tells me that you are more than capable. He picked you for a reason.
Zydeco told me that you never charge people.
Oh, couldn't if I wanted to. I have to give it away.
How do you survive?
Well, you take a drive around here and look at all those homes out there. I've been helping these people since before half of 'em was even born. They think of me as family. I never goes hungry. They make sure I got everything I need. My boys stayed close to their mama. I got them too.
Do you know what these might be for? I pulled the coins out of my pocket Ariok had given me. She picked up each one and looked at them carefully. She touched the edges and held each one up close to her eyes. She yelled something in Creole to the others in the house, and they brought her out a magnifying glass. She studied the coins for a few minutes and then handed them back.
I think them is keys. You put them into something and you turn. These came from your demon, didn't they? I can feel the other world in 'em.
Yes. He gave them to me in one of his mason jars.
Well, you just hang on to 'em. It'll make sense as time goes on, ma chère.
Does your daughter know that he touched her when she was a baby?
When she first mentioned she was looking for a man with a hat, I told her the story. She acted like I was crazy, like there was no way the two things could be connected.
I agree with you. She's definitely seen too much now. There's no going back from the things she saw in Gatlinburg, much less the things she saw in New York. I'm going to Gatlinburg after this. Raven thinks she has a male with some similar qualities to a sage. There's never been a male before.
So you're taking your sage in hopes that you'll get a whole bunch of 'em?
Exactly. She looked down at a sleeping Hope and petted her head.
Oh, this is going to be interesting. Please, let me know. I'd love to have one of them dogs.
I think you could use one around here.
There are some things I'd like to ask.
I sat on her porch for hours. I smoked and drank sweet tea. Benoit brought us out some spicy gumbo for dinner, and we ate along the bayou. It was like being inside the Pirates of the Caribbean. Hope snoozed at my feet, and Nanny nestled herself into a cushion on the seat next to me. There was something about Benoit's mother that made me feel a sense of trust that I had never felt before. Her energy was filled with maternal love. This woman mothers everything. The feeling of warmth and security all of the children inside of us craves exudes through her pores. I told her everything, and she listened. She asked questions and really got me thinking about my situation with Aryak in all sorts of different ways. After talking about the alabaster angel and explaining to her the position of being right in the middle, I realized that my purpose is balance. I am the last stop before hell. The angel did ask Aryak for permission. I imagine he could have said no at that point, but he didn't say anything at all. Aryak allowed me to choose. After hours of talking and philosophizing about demons, we all went to bed. I slept with Benoit in what was her bedroom as a child. She had a queen-size bed, which took up most of the room. I made sure to not let any of my fingers touch each other. I wore my gloves to bed. I wanted to just sleep normally. In this tiny house filled with love, with Benoit right next to me and Hope at my feet, I slept better than I had since the last days I slept in the house with Travis. I felt safe. I spent the next few days with Benoit and her family. The first 2 days were the most difficult. I could feel people looking at me, trying to look at my hands. I finally put both out and just let them all look at them and touch the symbols. Benoit's mother focused on the one left by the angel, my little key. She touched it, and the second she did, the most horrible taste filled my mouth. I puked all over their kitchen and floor and continued till I managed to run outside. All that bacon and coffee came right back up. I could hear her apologizing to me through the retching. Benoit followed after me and put her hand on my back as I continued throwing up. After a few minutes, I stood back up and noticed that she was chuckling. "I'm glad you're finding this funny," I said while drying my mouth with the towel she had brought me. "Your mother, she's the worst tasting thing in the world to me."
I would imagine so. She really is the best person I've ever met. You okay?
After that, they all treated me like part of the family. We played cards and threw dice. I got to hear tons of embarrassing stories about Benoit. It felt so good to feel normal for a few days. No demons or psychopaths, just really good people. I wore my gloves for the rest of our stay in Louisiana. My new home in Texas had sat empty for a while. I was looking forward to living out in the middle of nowhere. I've never done that before. I imagine it's quiet out there. I called the first young female real estate agent I found on Google, and I told her I would be paying cash for the property. I sent her a bunch of earnest money and asked for a 90-day close. I figured this would allow time for Hope to hopefully have a litter of solid blue sages. We stayed with Benoit and the family for 5 days, and for 5 days I had peace. No Aryak. It was just like he had given me a vacation. I felt normal. But in the end, I felt bored. I began to miss the hunt. I wanted to call my mother and ask her if I'd ever been touched by some strange guy in a hat, but I knew she'd be half asleep when I called. I know this because she always is. I know a conversation with her triggers my anger and rage. I hate feeling that way. Maybe someday, but not now. It really doesn't matter anymore anyway. It won't change anything other than to maybe satisfy a curiosity. That ain't worth it to me. We said our goodbyes, and Benoit teared up while we prepared to leave. I could feel all those emotions attached to leaving for Benoit. It was like she had been transported to the day she left, all those years ago. This was her home, and I could understand why leaving it would be difficult. It was wonderful here. The love and compassion in the walls of her childhood home was hard to walk away from. I had to get back to Gatlinburg, and Benoit had to get back to work, at least for a bit. She already planned to take some time off so we could go to Texas together and settle in. Our plan was to go to Gatlinburg and then she would leave for D.C. She'll be there until I leave for Texas. I had promised all my little blackbirds back in Gatlinburg that I would stay until we had a batch of puppies. I was looking forward to being back with my family, too. We had been on the road for about 20 minutes before I asked her about her man in the hat experience. "Why didn't you tell me that he touched you, too?" I asked Benoit.
Oh, it's a story my mother's been telling me. At the time, I really didn't understand how all these things could possibly be related. There's another thing I wanted to talk to you about. My mother mentioned it. She says she feels something weird from Hope."
"Weird how?" I asked.
"Oh, I'm not sure. Mom said she was worried about her health. That something was going on with her, but she didn't know what, and she didn't want to worry you. She told me to tell you to get her to the vet once you're back in Gatlinburg."
"I've never taken Hope to the vet. Guess it'd be a good time for that anyway." I looked back at my sleeping dog and had a feeling of grief come over me. I could not imagine my world without her. Nanny did her usual ride and fly. She sits with Benoit for most of the ride, but also takes off flying here and there. It seems she enjoys her new life, just as I am finding ways to enjoy mine.